Hey guys, look at this. Today I'm going to be playing with the new Antigravity A1, and I think most of the reviews out on this are actually anti-reviews. They're actually sponsored content because the Antigravity company, which is in partnership with Insta360, is getting these out to a lot of influencers and creatives, and I'm fine with that. I mean, I get that because honestly, I think that's a big part of the target audience. But for my review here, we're not getting sponsored to do this, and I really want to review this more as the experiential concept of, is this fun to fly? Is this worth buying? Because the fact of the matter is, at $1,600 US for the base kit, $2,000 to get the accessories, the extra batteries and stuff like that, which you're definitely going to want, this is quite the financial commitment. So is it worthwhile to get? Is it fun enough to justify? That's what I want to get across to you today. I'm Chris Niccolls, this is PetaPixel, and I'm going to try this out without having ever touched it or flown it before. So the unique thing about the Antigravity A1 is basically how you interface with it. So you are actually using a VR headset that I'm going to wear. This is going to give me my viewpoint from the cameras. And of course, this is unique because this is a 360 camera. Slightly different hardware, but essentially it's an Insta360 X5. This is recording 8K footage, and I can basically look wherever I want. It's recording full 360, and that gives me the freedom in post to edit this however I want. So the goal is really going to be capturing footage, trying to get fairly close to subjects, and we're going to talk about the image quality overall, but also the unique way of flying this. There's different modes that we're going to use here, but I really want to make sure I have somebody to give me a heads up on it that's actually flown it. So I'm actually going to meet up with Evelyn Drake. She's flown this already, and we're going to talk to her next, and she's going to get me started. Okay, so we are joined by Evelyn Drake, Jordan's lovely wife, and the host of TCS TV, the Camera Store TV. And Evelyn, keeping with this concept of using this drone, maybe for the first time, somebody who's not an experienced drone pilot, are you a drone pilot?
That's me. No, I'm not a drone pilot. In fact, I've never flown a drone prior to my experience flying an anti-gravity drone. I've definitely been around them in lots of shooting scenarios. I understand how they function, but I've never really had interest in flying one myself. But everyone kept talking about this immersive experience of it being like easier for people that maybe are more intimidated by drone use. And so I had to give it a go, and it was an interesting experience.
So I wanted to come into this completely fresh, right? We've had it for a little while, but I didn't even want to play with it because I want to kind of see what that experience is like. I've flown lots of standard DJI RC drones, but never something like this, never FPV, never with a helmet on. So if you can take me through sort of the basic setup and what I need to know, I'd really appreciate that. And your experience. Sure. And then we'll see what my first experience is like.
So I'm going to show you here what we have.
Right, yeah, because you have a VR headset basically.
Yeah, we have this really cool, they're like sort of, you know, steampunk goggles. And
do they look cool when someone's wearing them?
I think they look cool, Chris. They do.
I think they look silly.
One thing that's really neat about them is that while you're flying, I can actually see what you're seeing in the front of the goggles.
Oh, it's like a monitor. Yeah. Okay, cool.
So that kind of helps, especially if you have a spotter or something like that, which you should have in a lot of shooting scenarios.
Yeah, we should point out that because this is FPV, like in a lot of places you need to make sure that if you need a spotter that someone's there to watch it.
Yeah, you need a friend.
Which does kind of limit, you know, maybe who can use it or how they can use it. So we have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, keep that in mind.
I imagine too, if I'm moving my head around, like looking all over the place, it's gonna be hard for you to see what I'm seeing on the monitor. There's no HDMI out. There's no way to connect this to an external monitor. So yeah, that is pretty limiting.
Yeah, so there is a good diopter on this. You can adjust it to your vision. You have a cable, and this is one thing I thought was a little bit weird when I first tried it out, is that you actually wear this battery pack.
Okay.
So you wear it around your neck like a lanyard.
Gotcha.
It's nice, you know, drone jewelry. So I imagine you're not going to love this part because you don't like straps and like being restricted by cables and whatnot. But you know, it's going to ground you in your whole system.
I mean, I have a Quest at home, and when I use it, like I've got a battery pack on my head and whatever, or I'm like plugged into the PC. I'm sure it'll bump the mic, so I'll apologize.
Yeah, there we go. Now, okay, so this here, you are going to plug it into your wearable battery pack. And one thing I should mention is that right now this cable is proprietary. It's a very specialized cable, and so you can't buy a replacement just anywhere. You would have to use these ones
until somebody rips it off and makes longer ones or whatever. Okay.
Exactly.
But that means that like with this length, I have to wear this as a lanyard. I can't put it on like belt or something, right? Pop this on.
Yeah, that looks really good.
Yeah, that feels pretty good. Okay. Okay, so this is connected. Cool. That's all synced up. I see it, and I see like Yeah, I can look around like a VR set, which is pretty cool.
You can probably see us with where the drone's positioned. But let's talk a little bit about this controller.
Okay.
The thing about this that is different from other drones is how you actually fly with this controller.
I don't have a dual joystick controller like I'm used to.
And I don't know, do you find it, like, does it feel weird after that?
I mean, you know, playing VR video games, it actually feels very similar to that kind of thing. So yeah, I can see how I'm in the menu in the goggles, I can move my pointer around, that all seems very natural.
Yeah, there's a target in there that we're going to get into a little bit later in terms of where you're going to fly.
Okay.
But with this controller, it's pretty simple. There's a trigger where your finger goes, and that's going to control you going forward and your speed. That's your gas.
Okay, I guess we should just launch it and just fly it and see how it goes.
Yeah, give it a go. Yeah. How are you finding the view?
Okay, yeah, so obviously we're low on the ground. I can see anywhere I want. I can look at you, there we are.
Hi.
But I'm looking like up in the sky to see my own butt.
The resolution of these is actually 2560 by 2560. So
it
looks nice.
Yeah, I just get like a square in the middle and it looks nice. Yeah, actually details pretty good.
The one that your finger's on right now is
this
white.
One? Yeah.
Yeah, and you're gonna be pushing it up.
Just hold it.
Yeah, hold it up.
Okay, it's gonna take off automatically. There it goes, okay.
Are you recording? Yeah.
Now if I want to go higher.
Yeah, go higher.
Okay, so I have to use my thumb to control that height. Okay, cool. And then...
Now you can go forward. Yeah, and look around.
Oh, okay, so now it flies where I look?
Yes, yeah, that's where you're in the free motion mode.
Okay. Okay, so here right now, free motion, wherever I look, that's where the drone flies. Yeah, okay, I see that. Okay. And the controller itself, doesn't really do anything.
Try the yaw controller right now, because you should be able to also.
Yeah, so the yaw is definitely letting me rotate the drone around.
Okay.
Yeah, quite quickly. Yeah. Yeah, so the yaw controller does let me change direction without having to move my head, which I like. Okay, so I want to try going to a different mode here now. Let's see what FPV is like. Okay. Oh yeah, this I like.
Yeah, this is kind of more like your classic, you're playing video game.
Yeah.
Probably similar to your VR system, I preferred the free motion just because it felt more natural to me to kind of like look around and see where I wanted to go. But if you are someone that's more of like a gamer, someone that has that experience, I could see.
Yeah, I like having my sort of yaw indicator and then just being able to, basically steer this around by flying with the controller.
Yeah, let's bring her home for a second and then you should go and just like have a fun day with it.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so to bring her home, do I just hold this down all the way? Yeah.
And then watch the little landing gear come out. So cute. I think it actually tells you too. Yeah, there it goes, the landing gear.
I see nothing.
Oh, never mind. I saw it. You guys saw it.
But that's cool. That worked out really well.
Cool?
Yeah, very nice. Okay, thank you. Well, hey, I appreciate the heads up, and I've got a feel for it now. So I think maybe I'll just go.
You'll be like a real, legit drone pilot in no time.
I will go try it out. All right. Thanks for your help, Ev. Appreciate it. So it's a good thing that we've got very similar hardware to the Insta360 X5 because you're going to want those larger sensors. So we're getting twin Type 1 over 1.28 size sensors. This is giving us a full 360 degrees. And of course, the beauty of this is you are getting that 360 degree footage. So it doesn't really matter where the drone's pointing. It's going to capture everything around it. More so, you're going to want to focus on how close you fly the drone to things, making it immersive, flying it close to subjects or underneath bridges and stuff like that, because that's where you're going to get that really exciting footage. But we do have to keep in mind that image quality wise, this isn't really going to be anywhere close to where you're going to get out of a modern DJI. And that's because even with this being 8K footage, if I want to get a standard sort of 16:9 wide frame, something that's going to mimic standard video, I'm cropping in heavily, well below 4K. And if we want anything to zoom in, more telephoto, the quality is going to drop off really quickly. Let's also remember that we're only getting 8K quality when we're shooting 24 up to 30 frames per second. If you go to 60 frames per second, you're not going to get that full resolution. Then again, when you want to crop in or use that footage later on, it's going to hurt a bit. I will say, like, the quality of the profiles is much better than we've seen before. Like, it is good usable video. But if you're hoping to combine this with proper 4K or higher DJI video, for example, it's just not going to look the same. You are going to notice that quality drop. Now, of course, you can also take some pretty decent photos, not the 72 megapixels you get out of the X5. It's actually down to 55 megapixels. And again, you can do those photos as an actual photograph of what you see in your viewfinder, or you can always do like a full 360 view as well. So you have fun there too. Storage medium is very predictable. Micro SD cards, you can slot one right in the back here on the drone, or you can use the 20 gigs of internal storage, but remember 8K footage is going to chew that up real quick. As well, on the actual headset itself, you can also put micro SD there so you can record your screen recordings and things like that. Now, just like the Insta360 cameras, if you want to edit this footage afterwards, you're going to have to use their app, either mobile or desktop, to then basically create a timeline and frame how you want to frame. Of course, you can just upload straight 360-degree video. That is always an option for you and let people look wherever they want to look. But if you want to create a certain kind of video or mix with something else, you're going to have to edit that first and then pop it over. And it can be a little bit cumbersome. I'm going to leave that to Jordan. Now, I know a lot of other people that have been playing with this Antigravity A1 have had it for a couple months. I mean, we have as well, but we had such a busy schedule. They were probably playing with it while it's still warm and beautiful, or they're going to tropical locations. But for us, we're shooting right before Christmas, and of course, it is winter time. But this actually does bring up some interesting environmental stuff. So first off, in cold weather like this, we actually learned very quickly, you cannot fly this below -10 degrees. Actually, the day we were going to shoot, it was much colder than that, and the drone will tell you, ambient temperature too cold, can't fly it. So that's interesting. It's slightly warmer today. We've got a nice sunny day, and we don't have much wind. Antigravity says you can fly the A1 against winds like 20 to 24 miles per hour, but I mean, that would be pretty severe. Luckily, we have very mild conditions today, so that's going to give us a good amount of battery life. You get about 24 minutes, and actually so far, that's been holding up to be true with the battery I have in here. I got a couple spares, so I have a bit of time if I want to play with it. The other thing I want to point out here is how fast you can fly this drone. You've got 3 different modes, very much like DJI. A C mode, cinematic, a normal mode, and then a sport mode, which disables any sort of object detection, you know, avoidance kind of stuff, but lets you fly faster. You can get this puppy up to like just over 20 miles per hour, so it's not super fast, but certainly you can get a little bit of speed out of it. I'm definitely noticing, though, just from my quick first test flight, that a DJI drone is going to be much faster, more maneuverable. This is really designed to be a little bit more easy to fly, casual, and I mean, that makes sense considering the audience they're going after. Jordan, do I look cool with these on?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't think so. How's my hair?
Bad.
Bad? Great. Okay. I just want to take this moment to talk about where's the camera. I'm like in the Dolomiti right now.
Follow my voice. There you go.
Is that about right? Okay, that sounds right. Okay, hopefully it is. I just want to talk a bit about the comfort of these. So, I mean, they are lighter than like a Quest for sure, you know, because we're not getting that big bulk in the front here. And so, comfort-wise overall, they're not sagging too bad. I'm not moving my head around a lot rapidly. Again, very different from video games. But when you're in free motion mode and you're using your body more to steer the drone itself, yeah, it does sag a little bit. In FPV mode, I could see just kind of like sitting down on a bench and flying this by itself, and that wouldn't be an issue. The straps are a little bit uncomfortable on the ears. I don't really feel like I need a counterweight on the back though. And again, very adjustable for eye position, for diopter, for overall fit and tightness. So I'm not feeling it pinching or anything anywhere. I'm getting the usual VR goggle discomfort where, you know, your hair is ruffled a bit and maybe it like feels a little bit tight on your forehead or your ears, but overall, not too bad a fit. Where are you? So for my first outing, I decided to use the prop guards. Good idea. I mean, we did crash. It wasn't a big deal. It was just like a nice gentle run into the ground there, you know. Basically, wherever you point that diamond reticle is where the thing wants to fly, but I was going a little bit fast and it did just touch the ground there. Now, one thing I do want to mention, we have no damage, but you can still change these lens covers for both the top and bottom camera, which is a very useful idea when you consider, well, you might scratch it. Probably will scratch it, to be honest. But we certainly have lots of other stuff to test. This is not enough time just to get out. This is really just a good session to sort of get familiar with it and learn it. I know Jordan wants to fly this as well, so we're gonna take some time, get some more footage, get some more experience, and then really come back and talk about the editing process and the overall image quality.
Okay, before we talk about my impressions of the footage, I just quickly wanted to interject and talk a little bit about the lighting that I use when I'm talking about image quality here in my office or on the PetaPixel podcast. It's actually a really simple setup. So all I have is one light. This is a Westcott L60B. This is a single point cob light, and then I modify that with their little Octo Switch softbox. This is a really compact setup, and I love that the head, I can change the color temperature on it, and the output, but then I do want to drop the contrast just a little bit. So for that, I use a Westcott 40-inch 5-in-1 reflector with the white portion aimed at me, and that gets rid of a little bit of the harsh shadows. But this is a really simple lighting setup, and it's served me so well I really haven't had to change it in over 2 years. So if you want something simple for web meetings or your own YouTube channel, check out fjwestcott.com or click the link in the description below to find out more. And that's why Westcott is PetaPixel's preferred lighting partner. Alright, it's Jordan Drake here, and I've had a chance now to look at some footage from the Antigravity A1 and just want to talk about it a little bit. But in terms of picture quality, there really weren't many surprises because I have looked at the Insta360 X5 and I found image quality to be very, very similar coming off of the drone on here. And I just want to reiterate, as Chris mentioned, if you want as much resolution as possible, you want to get quite close to your subject and not zoom in too much. But if you stick to a more extreme wide-angle perspective, then you get a reasonable amount of detail. And I was quite impressed, even with a lot of fast-moving footage and a lot of fine detail in the shots. I didn't have any issues with compression, and I do really like the color and contrast that comes right out of this. And one real benefit to using a 360-degree camera is that you don't have to compose for vertical or horizontal delivery. I can shoot the exact same footage and afterwards choose whether that's going to be in a landscape orientation or portrait with no compromises in either direction. And this feature alone might make this a more compelling option than a lot of the other drones out there, which give you the option to record in horizontal and vertical, but you have to choose your orientation before you start recording. With this, just film it and you've got both options available to you in post. Another thing I was concerned about is what is the quality of the stitching going to be like when we combine the images from those two cameras. And because this is a drone, you tend to stay a little bit further away from your subject and there's no giant selfie stick that needs to get erased from the footage. I actually found that this wasn't an issue at all, except during takeoff and landing. I mean, if you don't put this into sports mode where it'll allow you to get very close to objects, you're never going to get close enough to actually see the seams. You really only see them when you're taking off and landing, and probably that's not going to be any time that you're actually recording the footage. But one thing you need to be aware of is 360-degree footage does require quite a bit of time in post to really fine-tune the look of it. Remember, you're not just setting your in and out point, but also where you're going to be looking within that 360-degree space. And to make it more compelling, I find you really want a keyframe where the perspective is moving from point to point. Now the software packages are going to look very familiar to you if you've used any of the Insta360 software on mobile and desktop. Now let's talk about the desktop software first, which I find works very well. It's very stable, performance is quite nice on it, but just remember it is quite a time-consuming process to scroll around with your mouse, choosing the perspective that you want and the speed it's going to move from one frame to another. The other option is the mobile app, and while this will still allow you to manually keyframe your video clips, it has a much bigger emphasis on automation. This is something where you can have it analyze all your clips and quickly build reels for you. Now I do think these automated edits are going to be really useful for people just getting started working with 360-degree video to give you a good idea of what's possible, and I like that you can tweak it, alter it to different types of shots, and change the mood with different music choices and templates. My concern is I found the mobile app at this point quite unstable. A few times it would crash during export, and most annoyingly it would just have the drone go into standby mode and interrupt my access to the files while I was working on something, meaning I had to start from scratch again. But of course remember, this is brand new software for a newly released drone. I expect that this is going to be much more stable in the future. But while I've been looking at this footage, Chris has been out getting more experience flying the Antigravity A1, so let's take a look at his final thoughts.
Okay guys, we are back. And before we go on to my experiences using this drone, I've used it a bit more, Jordan's used it. We've also let a lot of other people use it, people who've never used a drone before, and the results that we got from them are basically unanimous. It was easy to fly, it wasn't scary, and they didn't have any problems. No crashes, no disasters, nothing like that, which is very good when you're giving complete novices control of an FPV-style drone. Now, I did crash it twice, and I want to talk about that a bit more. And look, This is completely my fault. I'm not blaming the drone in any way. The crashes that I had all happened in sport mode, and I did find myself going into sport mode quite often, definitely more often than I would with the DJI drone of similar caliber. And that's because this drone definitely in cinematic or normal mode is designed to be very safe, very secure, and to avoid obstructions. You aren't going to use this drone to fly through trails and trees or underneath structures or anything like that. In fact, we did try, and the fact of the matter is it will stop in a very healthy distance, which is absolutely perfect for novice users. Yes, there are more advanced DJIs like the DJI 4 Pro, for example, the Mavic, where we could fly it in the trees through a hiking trail and it would dodge everything beautifully and intelligently. But of course, that's beyond the scope of what this drone is trying to do. For people that just want to fly it, they don't want to crash it, they don't want to run into things, and so this gives you a very healthy sphere of safety around the drone. I think that's a good choice. It's just the only way to then do anything that's a bit more risky is to put it into sport mode, and then that was entirely up to my lack of skill. Flying it as an airplane and enjoying the speed and the look of it, I just didn't pull up fast enough in a couple situations, or maybe I flew into the side of a building once. And so I'm glad I had these. I mean, these are the prop guards that you can get for the A1 kit. I do highly recommend these because first off, they saved the drone a couple times when I was flying it, but also I did notice sometimes the drone wouldn't land exactly in the same spot that it launched from. So the prop guards can also be really nice from the standpoint of maybe it lands close to grass or bush or something like that, or uneven terrain where you just don't want those blades digging to the ground. There is not a lot of clearance with those tiny little landing gear from the actual drone itself to the landing pad. So you definitely want to launch this off of a landing pad or at least a smooth surface as much as possible. But I also do feel like in the cinematic and normal mode, I wouldn't really have any risk of crashing the drone into anything or having the blades contact anything. In sport mode, definitely a good idea. And so there's two main takeaways that I have from my experience using the A1. The first, it is absolutely fun and easy to fly, and that's a big part of the appeal here. The other thing, it's actually a very polished experience, and I was pretty skeptical because a lot of the other drones that you hear about or that we've tried that aren't DJI tend to have real issues or just be quirky or odd controls, bad user experience interface. This is actually really nice, really well polished. I mean, the controller works well, the VR goggles work well, the menu system was all easy to use. It was very easy to navigate, and we had relatively few issues. Again, this is very early in the stage of the A1. I'm sure there'll be firmware improvements going forward, but the only real issues that I had, the only glitches per se, were it sometimes not landing in the right spot. I mean, maybe a couple feet off from where I wanted it to land. That wasn't a big deal. Other issues like battery life, it does get a little bit worried about how much battery life is left and when it wants to return and come home. Like, I found that to be overly conservative, but again, you can override that stuff. I mean, look, the overall range was very good that you could fly this away, but you want to have the drone a little bit higher up because obstructions will cause some problems. And there were a few situations where I did lose connection. Not a major issue though, because the fact of the matter is, depending where you live, you're supposed to have a spotter watching for the drone anyways, so you're not supposed to be flying it behind buildings or indoors at all, nothing like that, or over the other side of a hill or stuff like that. It's not designed to do that. And at the same time, if you're in a place where you don't need a spotter, you probably still should have a spotter in most situations. Okay, but who is this drone then for? I mean, who's it best suited to? So let's talk about a content creator first. You absolutely can have fun and get some pretty dynamic footage. And I know when I was first flying a drone, it was difficult to always have two minds about where the drone's flying and what it's doing, but also what you're capturing and trying to get the right frame and the right footage. And to some degree, the 360-degree drone takes care of that because you don't necessarily have to worry about framing. You simply have to fly the drone through the areas that you think will be interesting, and you can choose your framing later. That absolutely does still require some foresight, but while I was flying it, I wasn't thinking about, oh, what frame am I getting? Is the camera in the right position? I was really focusing on just flying the drone, and that was actually not only fun, but a little bit more of a free experience. But for a lot of content creators, as we've already said, the image quality is just not quite there. There's big sacrifices if you're farther away from your subjects. You really got to fly the drone close if you want to maintain resolution. And so it's not going to please everybody. A similarly priced DJI product will take way better footage within the frame that it's allowing for. So who else should use this? Well, From a fun standpoint, I think it'd be really cool. The free motion mode is easy for people to fly, and it really does give you that VR bird's eye view experience. You can also set this on waypoints and just give people like virtual tours flying like a bird. That's really cool. And then for myself, I really enjoyed using it in FPV mode, flying it kind of like an airplane and getting that VR experience and be able to look everywhere. I know to FPV pilots that, do this all the time. This is nothing new, but this gives you a lot of fun experiences for casual users that's far more approachable. And lastly, who is this drone good for? This compact, polished little 360 drone? The wealthy, because it's expensive and there's no getting around that. I mean, I do really recommend that you guys get the full kit, the $2,000 kit that gives you extra batteries, which you're going to want to need anyways, the prop guards. I mean, you're going to want this stuff. And honestly, the best part of the experience was letting other people fly and just seeing the joy that they were having. It's not intimidating. They were having a great time. There was no issues, and it really gave them that cool VR experience. And that might be worth the cost of admission, absolutely. But for the same amount of money, look, if you're looking for something more serious, DJI is going to give you way better video quality. It's just not going to be 360, or you're going to be into something that's not a micro drone, right? Above the 249 gram limit, well, then there's other rules and stuff that apply. But if you're looking for this compact micro drone kind of experience, this is really incredibly expensive for what it does. But as of right now, there's nothing else that really does it. But that'll do it for our very first review of 2026. I hope you guys all had a great new year, and we look forward to another fantastic year of reviews. And a great New Year's resolution would be to support the people that you love, the videos that you enjoy. So maybe consider getting a PetaPixel.com membership, $30 a year for 2026. That's nothing, or $3 a month, slightly more expensive, but it really gets you a lot of benefits. Peruse the website ads free, access sample galleries, RAWs and JPEGs of all the stuff that reviews so you can judge for yourself. Also get great discounts on our merch store and other places like KEH.com, as well as some cash back at the moment store and a lot of the gear that they have to sell. So you definitely are going to come out better for 2026 if you get one of those. And hey, 2026 is also going to be the year of the PetaPixel podcast. We're running all year, and we definitely want you to join us this exact same channel or all your favorite podcasting apps. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you soon with more on PetaPixel.